All right. Thanks, Julian, for your report. For more election analysis, we now have our special guest on the show, Sebastián de Lara, head of the Space Side Group for Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean, and returning to our show, Duncan Wood, Vice President of the Wilson Center. Thank you both for joining us. It's really great to see you. Duncan, I want to start with you. I know that you were an observer at the polls, and it seems like the big winner of this whole thing was the National Election Institute. Supposedly, and I want you to explain this to us too, because they were saying 99% of the casillas were installed, and that was a huge victory for the INE. Tell us about your observation during this election and what you thought of the process.
Hey, Dan. Hi, Sebastian. Good to see you. First of all, Dan, I got to challenge you on something. I don't call bullshit on you, okay? You said earlier on that the whole puto thing in the Mexican soccer games is something that comes from the United States. It's like values from outside. It's not. This is a conversation within Mexico. This is something that a lot of people feel very strongly about. They find it highly offensive. And honestly, you're touching upon an issue which is really, really important right now when you look at what's happening over in Europe. The English soccer team is the national team is taking a knee against racism, and they're getting abuse from their fans or from one section of their fans. And it's one of those value judgments, I think, that we really do have to enforce. So, and I know there's a lot of humor on your show, but it's really not about values being transposed from outside. This is about something there's been a serious conversation about it in Mexico for a number of years now. And the Mexican Soccer Federation themselves have been trying to improve this situation. So there's that, okay? Now to the elections. I agree.
You can call bullshit on me. I mean, no one checks this, so I'd like to have a check and a challenge, and you make a good point.
There you go.
All right, well, let's go back to the election and talk to me about observing and being in the and what you saw there.
So listen, as a foreigner who's followed Mexico for, nigh on 30 years, I've heard all the stories about Mexican elections and about the creation of a democratic culture in the country, and the fact that elections are run by citizens. And I'd always sort of listened to it and kind of, I said, yeah, sure, whatever. That sounds very nice. But I'd never actually been inside the casillas, the polling stations. And once you go in there and you see how they're run, that obviously there's an enormous amount of investment from the National Elections Authority, the Institute. There's an investment of resources and training, etc. But it is actually run by the citizens. And it's an extraordinary thing to see, because you hear about it, but you don't actually understand it until you go in there. And when you see it, it's like, the people from the neighborhood. You've got somebody who is the presidente or presidenta. The 5 casillas that I went to, 4 of them had a female president that was running everything. And they set the rules locally. So in some of them, we were allowed to take photographs. In other ones said, no, we don't want you to take photographs. But there's this feeling within the polling stations that everybody knows each other. They're all from the neighborhood. People are saying hello to each other, So there's a feeling of trust and community. You've got the observers from the parties standing there who are making sure that there's no funny business. And we were lucky enough at the end of the day to see the rapid count down in Tlalpan, in a polling station only 2 blocks away from AMLO's house. And it's an amazing thing. It's so simple. The the ballots have been put into clear plastic boxes, okay? When it comes time to open them, they hold up the box and say, we're opening this box for Diputaciones Federales, for the federal deputies. They open it up and they take out the votes one by one. They lay them on a sheet that's been prepared on the table, and then they just begin to add them up. And it's such a simple process. There's no early voting. There's no mail-in voting. There's no hanging chads. There's no, question with hacking the system. And it works beautifully now. And of course, there are anomalies and there are problems and there's fraud throughout the country. But honestly, what I saw, I asked every single party representative in all 5 of the polling stations we went to if they had seen any problems or anything they weren't happy with. And they all said no. It was great. And I had fully expected that some people from Morena were going to say, look, you know what? We're not happy with the way this is going. But no, nobody had a complaint. That put AMLO in a very interesting position on Monday morning, because if he was to come out and say this was a fraudulent election, he's not only going against Lorenzo Cordova, head of the INE, or against the INE itself, he's going against more than 1 million Mexicans who ran their own election. And that's an extraordinary thing. It's a testament to the strength of Mexican democracy.
Absolutely. But also people are saying that maybe the election itself was clean, but some of the things that were happening before the election, some violations of the rules, that maybe after the election something will happen, but it did have an effect on the outcome. Seb, can you tell us a little bit more about this? There were the things that the Green Party were paying influencers 2 million pesos each to say good things about the Green Party, and there were some other irregularities that were happening before the election.
Absolutely. First of all, Dan, thanks so much for inviting me. Duncan, it's great to be a co-invitee on a show with you. First of all, I think that it's very important to also mention that this has been an extremely violent electoral process. Throughout the campaign season, we saw more than 85 electoral crimes where candidates were murdered, they were kidnapped, they were attacked, there was an attempt of murder. So things were pretty rough. And as you mentioned, also there was an attempt, particularly by the Green Party, to manipulate the voting. There is a period where you cannot really do anything regarding the elections. You can't call out for a vote. All candidates have to stay quiet. And basically, it's a 4-day period. And during those 4 days, the Green Party clearly violated it, pretending not to, and paying influencers or known influencers to say that they are going to vote for the Green Party. And apparently it worked, because the Green Party will have somewhere around 44 seats in the lower house of the National Congress. So it wasn't too much of a bad strategy if you see it that way. However, it was completely illegal. I think that the INE will take matters into their own hands, whether they will fine them or there will be other type of repercussions. It really depends on what the law is established there. I do think, and I want to really say and stress the fact that the INE is the true winner of this election, in the sense that AMLO in the past was trying to undermine the INE, was trying to manipulate everyone into thinking that the INE was biased and was participating with the opposition, has constantly attacked INE's president, Lorenzo Córdoba. And for a pretty good while, it seemed that his followers were sort of believing it. And now we're seeing that, like Duncan mentioned, that, once a million or so people participate in the election, everyone sees how clean it is. It's really impossible to go against the INE and say that INE causes any type of problem within Mexico. They are really the true guarantors of democracy in our country.
And that's a critically important issue, Sebastian, that you raised, because, of course, we've got the consulta pública, the referendum, coming up in 2022. And the INE will play a role in that. And of course, the presidential elections in 2024. So actually making sure that we have a level playing field for the parties and the candidates ahead of time is critically important. It looks like you and me are in a conversation on our own right now. Dan seems to have disappeared. So, hey, let's just talk.
Exactly.
I agree with you. I think that the INE is a big winner. The Verde is a big winner because of the power they now wield.
He has a simple majority. Seb, we can go with you. And
we lost you for a bit, Dan.
We got you all. You guys can hear me, right?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, perfect. So you have he doesn't have an absolute majority anymore. He has a simple majority. And how is that going to change the dynamic in the government for the next 3 years? His fourth transformation doesn't seem like he's going to make such a transformation because of now having a larger opposition Congress. Duncan, what do you think is going to happen?
So it's funny, you disappeared for a while from the screen there, Dan. So Sebastian and I we're talking about this. We were talking about this issue exactly, and I was just going into a conversation about the Green Party and how they do wield so much power right now. They're kind of the kingmaker in this equation, as they've been on so many occasions in recent memory. And this is it's an interesting position. They seem to be the survivors. They seem to be able to adapt But what we're looking at in terms of the constitutional reform question is that AMLO is now scrambling, as you showed in that clip earlier on. I mean, he's talking about co-opting members of the PRI so that he can get that. But even if he does achieve that, if he's able to bring enough members of the PRI over to his side, he's still stuck in a really difficult position, which is that, let's say he gets the constitutional reform through the Chamber of Deputies, which looks very unlikely, he still has to deal with the Senate. And there are, he lacks 7 votes. And for the past 3 years, the opposition in the Senate has banded together, provided a cohesive, united front against him. I was talking with a senior pre-senator the other day about this and was told, look, the fact is that we've had our backs against the wall. We've all been under immense pressure, but it's really bound us together. And that helped us to campaign together in this election. And the opinion from this particular senator was that that cooperation will continue. So we'll see in the months ahead. But certainly, the pressure has been there. The pressure will continue. And one thing I will say is that even if AMLO can't do things through a constitutional majority or constitutional reform, he's going to try in many other ways. He's committed to his goals. Right.
I wonder how this coalition is going to be fractured. I mean, the Partido Verde doesn't have an entire history of being or doing the greatest things, right? And who knows how much, it could collapse at one point maybe and swing to the other opposition. Frank, Seb, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I think that if we consider that since the Fox administration, the Verde has always been allied to the party in government, no? So, I mean, it's quite evident that they do it because they need to, and that's the way they survive. I also think something that's very important and putting on to what Duncan was saying is that, for example, also another blocker that AMLO would have for any constitutional reform are the state legislatures. So after it's approved by the lower and upper house, it goes on to the state legislatures that require 2/3 of the country's vote. So that would also mean that things would become a lot more difficult, because even though Morena has 15 governorships at the moment, will have 15 governorships due to the elections, it still makes things a lot more difficult. And I think that, and again, agree with Duncan, he's going to try to do his best to undermine every single autonomous agency. For example, we're seeing now that he's sending Herrera to the Mexican Central Bank, which is kind of an odd decision in my view. We're seeing decisions that always try to undermine autonomous agencies, and I'm sure he's going to continue doing that. But it makes things a lot more difficult, and it allows institutions like the INE to take a deep breath and say, okay, we're still going to be around for the next elections, and hopefully more. So I think that's positive. It's a positive outcome.
And Dan, if I can jump in here, I mean, I think we're seeing a change of attitude from AMLO. He's reassessing his strategy and his tactics right now. I mean, today, he's called for this meeting with senior Mexican business people that he's been attacking publicly recently, like Claudio X Gonzalez. And that willingness now to reach out suggests that AMLO recognizes that the way he's been doing things is not going to work in the second half of his mandate, when he's lost legitimacy, he's lost support. And maybe it's a little bit of a wake-up call. Now, the man himself is a survivor. Never count AMLO out. He's an extraordinary politician. And so he will be able to duck and dive and weave in the ring and be able to get things done, no doubt about it. But he's now going to have to be a lot more collaborative than he was before.
Absolutely. Listen, we have a minute left, but I have to ask this question. What did you think about AMLO calling her Kabbalah? Yeah, there were some agreements to do new things in the future, to have roundtables and meetings, but all joking aside, there wasn't a lot of substance. That I don't even know what people were expecting from this meeting. What are you thinking? And is there going to be a shift after this election? Are there going to changes? What's going on with the U.S.-Mexico relationship? Duncan?
So, listen, I think that I didn't have great expectations for this meeting, but it turns out there was a hell of a lot of work going on behind the scenes for months. I sat down with folks in the Mexican government yesterday to talk to them about this. what they've laid out is, it's not a roadmap. It's more of a sort of an institutional framework for the relationship. And that reflects the priorities of the Biden administration, which is, we all know that migration is there. But in addition to the migration cooperation, we've got an institutionalized relationship for trade and investment, which is now the high-level economic dialogue, which is being reborn. We've got a cabinet-level security dialogue, which is a way to institutionalize that conversation between the two governments at the highest level on public security. You've got the United States dedicating significant resources to helping Mexico implement its labor laws, which is an issue that matters a great deal to the folks here in Washington, particularly on the Democrat side of the aisle. So actually, I mean, I look at it and it opens up new possibilities. But there's two things that I will say. One is, we have to see whether or not the two governments are really committed to this, and whether they're willing to put not their money, but their political capital where their mouths are. And secondly, AMLO himself. We all know that AMLO doesn't like institutional approaches. You know, Biden is a charismatic politician. He believes in personal relationships, but in fact, he operates through institutional channels.
Right.
AMLO is not like that. So unless AMLO tells his cabinet that they should go along with this, it's not going to work. And so that's what we're going to see. The proof of it will be in the pudding, and the pudding is going to be seen in the second half of this year. See whether we make any real advances, whether the meetings that we have on trade and security and migration actually bear any fruit.
Absolutely. Okay, we're out of time, but Duncan, Seb, it's always great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for your insight. Thanks for calling me out on the Puto story.
I'll always do it, Dan. Don't worry.
Thanks to the both of you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we'll hopefully have you guys back on the show again. Thanks so much.